So like that Rising Canes.
Yeah, I did. I like it. I like it. Yeah. You've been in Texas too long.
I gotta have some fun. We gotta drum up something in this season. And so this is an interesting team this year. This is one of those wild card teams. Like I can see this really going one way or the other. Of course, last year was the season that I feel like Miami really burst onto the scene last year. And it's all perception. There's a lot of Miami haters out there. There's a lot of people who want to see this program do bad. And they're going to be the first ones to point it out and say, you just missed the playoffs. You lost to Syracuse. And they have a point. I mean, I had Miami in my playoff last year. I had a lot of expectations for them given their timing, their roster. It seemed right. It's like everything was coming together at the right time. So I was slightly disappointed they just missed the playoffs last year. But when you look at what Miami did last year compared to these past 10 years, with the exception of 2017, just being able to win double-digit games was huge for that team. It was groundbreaking. It was a step in the right direction. I want to see them do more, having a Heisman caliber quarterback. But what they did was still a huge accomplishment and something to build off of this year. And the first thing that I'm going to hear people say when we talk about Miami too is, they lost a lot of guys. Yeah. They lost Cam Ward. They lost Damian Martinez. They lost Xavier Restrepo. They lost Elijah Arroyo.
Isaiah Horton
to Alabama. So you lost guys to other schools and the NFL. There's a drop-off. And I know that. I acknowledge that. But Miami's biggest liability last year was their secondary. You cannot play like that and win football games week in and week out, especially when you don't have a freak like Cam Ward there anymore. Cam Ward, I don't think people understand how good Cam Ward is. He's going to go to Tennessee this year. I'm telling you right now, he's going to win Rookie of the Year. Tennessee could be a playoff team. He is like that.
He filled a lot of holes for Miami.
Oh, he was the reason why they won like half these games last year. Like you look at so many of them. Like you look at the Cal game. You look at the Virginia Tech game that we watched together now. It was incredible. And now, I mean, you have Carson Beck, who I get shit on a lot. I mean, I'll talk about him in a minute. It's not Cam Ward, but still very serviceable. But I like the notion of Carson Beck being paired with this enhanced secondary that Miami has, because this is a smart staff. They knew how bad that secondary was last year, and they knew the unfortunate positions that it put them in a lot of times last year. That's why they went out and got Jacoby Thomas. It's why they went out and got Zechariah Poyser. It's why they went out and got Xavier Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
They know that they had to make adjustments. And they did. This is a greatly enhanced secondary. And I think it's going to perform a lot better. I think they're going to be able to defend the deep ball a lot better. They'll be able to defend intermediate a lot better. They won't be allowing as many explosive plays. And the big topic, as always, is going to be Carson Beck. Because it's going to be a huge story this year.
Yeah.
Because last year at this time, he was projected to be the first quarterback off the board at this time last year. Just let that marinate. He went back for another year. Nobody expected that. But and a lot of people blame Georgia's struggles on offense last year, because even though they won the SEC championship, they were a very imperfect team and had a lot of struggles on offense. And yeah, he wasn't great. Made a lot of turnovers, threw a lot of interceptions, was not consistent. But there were a lot of components of Georgia's offense that were not there. Their running back game was probably the most disappointing that I've seen under Kirby Smart since the early years. The receiving core is very mid.
They dropped a lot of balls.
Outside of Tate Ratledge was not good at all.
Yeah.
It was, on the offensive side of the ball, it was very disappointing. It was not just Carson Beck.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was a fit there either. I think guys buy more into Gunnar Stockton than they do Carson Beck. I think that got into his head after a while, and it wasn't a fit. I think that a program like Miami matches Carson Beck's personality a lot more. I just think that he's going to vibe more with the vibe in 305, and at that program, what it's about. I think he's more of a Miami guy than he is a Georgia guy. I don't think he was ever a Georgia guy. He screams South Florida to me. I think it's going to be a fantastic match. And also right now, I think it was Josh Pate I listened to this morning saying it. The whole personal life thing. And I don't like to bring this stuff up usually. But a lot with what he's dealing with in his personal life right now, I think is going to, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's going to cripple him. It's going to be on his mind. I think he's going to be more football focused and football oriented than ever now. And so I'm not going to say whether he's going to have a breakout year or not this year, but I think that the potential's there.
So with Miami, first of all, I'll add something to the Carson Beck thing. He is coming off of an injury, which I'm interested to see how he looks early on in the regular season. And then with Miami, I think you might be a little bit more positive with them than I am overall. And to me, it's Clemson clear cut in the ACC as the best team. And then there's this group below below Clemson, and it's like Miami, it's Louisville, SMU, Georgia Tech. And so I'm interested to see who that second team is in the ACC. Obviously, Miami has a great shot too. For all the reasons you mentioned, they got better on defense. Mario Cristobal has been doing interviews in the offseason where he's mentioning defense. And it's interesting because Cristobal was always a defensive-minded coach. And so to see him have a team where his offense was so good and they couldn't even get into the playoffs or the ACC championship was pretty shocking to me. And I look at Miami's schedule. A couple games that I think really stand out is Notre Dame week 1. We mentioned that. We talked about that last episode. And then they play Florida at home. And that's a Florida team that, they're hungry. You talk about desperate. That's a desperate program. And they just got the shit kicked out of them by Miami opening week last year. So they're going to be revenge oriented. And then they do play a couple of those teams in the second tier of they play Louisville, they play SMU, and they even play a Syracuse team that I'm very high on. So I think with Miami's schedule, they avoid Clemson, but there's a lot of traps on that schedule. And I briefly want to talk about Mark Fletcher as well. Mark Fletcher has consistently been one of my favorite running backs. You talked about Le'Veon Moss at A&M. I think Fletcher is another one of those guys that Moss kind of had his breakout last year. Fletcher was stuck behind Martinez, but even when he got a lot of reps, he was productive. And I think Fletcher is going to be maybe the key piece to that Miami offense, especially with Beck, because Beck's not going to do what Cam Ward did last year, where he can throw for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns and make it look easy. Miami this year is going to have to use the run game to open up the pass game.
No, and I want to make that clear too to the Miami fan base. You don't have Cam Ward anymore.
Yeah.
And Carson Beck is not Cam Ward. There was the common belief last year at this time, which is crazy, was that he is better than Cam Ward. I'll be honest, I never bought into that. I really liked Cam Ward. I don't know if I had him at number 1 at this time last year or not, but I always really liked Cam Ward.
Yeah.
But Carson Beck was never Cam Ward. He's not Cam Ward, so you can't have Cam Ward-like expectations. That receiving core also isn't the same. It's going to be a very different looking Miami team this year. I think it's going to be a bit more ground and pound. It's going to be a bit more physical than it was last year. It's not going to be the same kind of spread offense like you were seeing last year, and you're getting well over 300 passing yards every game. It's not going to be that style of offense. But I think that you will be seeing a team that can gross maybe over 200 rushing yards per game. I think you can expect that and balance that out with maybe 230, 250 in the air. That's what you're going to be seeing a lot more of this year in lower scoring games. Not as many 42-38s. I think you're going to see more 27-24s this year, 23-20s this year from Miami. And just building off of expectations, like you were saying, I think that this is a team that has a high ceiling and can pop off. There's a lot of potential there, but I also do want to address the reality of the situation here.
Yeah.
And I do completely agree with you that Clemson is the true blue outlier in this conference. Like Clemson is up here.
Yeah.
Clemson has an 81% returning production. Clemson is an SEC Big Ten caliber team in the ACC.
Yeah.
They're I think they're. I don't think people understand the extent to which Clemson's going to dominate. Like I'm close to expecting them to be undefeated in the ACC. There's maybe that one trap game, but like they're clearly better than everybody in that conference right now. And Miami is in that group with your Louisvilles, with your SMUs, with your Georgia Techs. I actually think Georgia Tech might be better than Miami.
I agree.
Georgia Tech, I think I have them at second in the ACC. And we'll save that for another episode when we talk about our ACC expectations.
Yeah.
But Miami's got some landmines on that schedule this year. Just having Notre Dame and and Florida so early on is huge. I think there's a chance they lose both those games. I think they can win both of them. I think they can lose both of them.
Yeah.
And if they do, you could be staring down the gun barrel this season at kind of a gauntlet of these landmine games. Like you're saying, you got SMU on the schedule. Like you got Syracuse who beat them last year on the schedule.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be tough for Miami to get into a position where they're going to make a playoff run. I have like the same kind of forecast I had for A&M last year.
Yeah.
Maybe in the hunt. I think they could be alive towards the end of November. But realistically, if you want to be an ACC team and make the college football playoff, the way that's structured right now, the way that the criteria is, you've got to win 11 games. If you have a tough schedule, they may make an exception for Miami having Notre Dame and Florida. So 10-2 might work for them.
I agree.
But ideally, it's got to be 11-1 or 12-0. And realistically, I don't see them doing that this year. So I think they're going to need things to go their way this year. You're going to have to win at least one of those Florida Notre Dame games. It's going to be tough starting off with that early on, realistically. But this is a very talented team that's capable of doing that. They can. I'm not saying they can't, but realistically, seeing it unfold, the chances don't look great.
Well, and I think the reason why you group both of these teams together to talk about, even though I think we both are on the same page that A&M is better than Miami, but
Yes.
But both of these teams are kind of being overlooked in the preseason conference polls in a way. You know, maybe Miami a little bit more than A&M, but both of these teams could show out and shock people, like you said. And so I think these are kind of like the wild cards of their conferences. You really never know what you're going to get with either of these programs. And I feel like maybe A&M has a little bit more of a momentum swing than Miami after the way Miami ended last year. But at the same time, Miami was able to expose their flaws and how to make their program better by those mistakes. So I really think that while you say Georgia Tech, I agree with Georgia Tech being better than them. I think I have Miami probably fifth in the conference right now, but with the high ceiling that they have, I mean, they could easily be playing in Charlotte at the end of the year.
It can happen. Miami fans, like, before you get angry at us, like we're saying, it can happen. Like, I can see Carson Beck having a complete reset at the U and just having a get back year that propels him back into being a first round candidate once again. Like, that could very well happen. But Miami, I think, is having the same kind of identity shift that USC had last year, going from being no defense and aerial, Caleb Williams, fast receivers, great route runners, being explosive on offense, but no defense, to a little bit more buttoned up on the defensive side of the ball, more reliance on the run game, being physical on both sides of the ball. A quarterback who's not as flashy. Carson Beck's not as flashy of a player as Cam Ward is, not as dynamic of a quarterback. But in the right system here, could be great with checkdowns, could be great bouncing that run game out, and could turn up the dial with the deep ball after a while. But a little bit more of a balanced attack than we saw last year. I think that's the vision for Miami this year.